Well, I guess I'm an Elden Ring channel now, which I'm okay with, but I would much rather be, making content about a game that's actually out. So I guess I'm just speculating wildly some more. No, but in all seriousness, I think we're on the cusp of either like some real news or a new trailer or something like that, or on the cusp of going very, very, very hollow, because if this game does not get shown at the Game Awards, I think there's something seriously wrong with its development. But I think the odds are fairly good, but I'm going to remain cautiously optimistic. So I'm making this video in the first week of December, and the last couple days have just been like this roller coaster of like, yeah, it's totally going to be there. Holy shit, it's definitely not going to be there. Oh my god, it's totally going to be there, guys. So I think like earlier in the week, some guys asked Jeff Keighley point blank if Elden Ring was going to be at the Game Awards. In fact, I think they just said like blink if it's going to be at the Game Awards. And my god, did he not blink. Jeff Keighley, for those of you who don't know, is the guy who puts together and hosts the Game Awards every year. So Jeff did not blink at all. And he gave his usual spiel about pressure and people wanting it to be there. And initially I took that as just like a soft no, as in like, no, it's not going to be there. Please, for the love of God, stop asking me. But then some other people pointed out that he really can't commit to anything unless like the developers or publishers themselves announce it. Like last year for the Game Awards, the final cap of like the Game Awards was supposed to be Half-Life Alyx, which would have been this awesome like, yeah, here's our whole night of games, and guess what? There's gonna be a new Half-Life. Like, how awesome is that? Apparently, they pulled out like a couple of days before the Game Awards were gonna premiere, which they did so because of development reasons. But it left the Game Awards in a pretty shitty spot where they had to scramble, and instead they showed us that really crappy looking Fast and Furious game, which did terribly, which reviewed really poorly, and I think sold really poorly as well. So anyways, it's not like Jeff can really commit to anything. All of these games could just pull out at the very last second, and then he'd be, there holding the bag. He would be saying like, oh yeah, it's totally going to be here, guys. Yeah, Elden Ring is going to be there. And let's say they have some last minute development issues and they pull out, then we're all furious at Jeff Keighley in the Game Awards. And then it just looks really bad on his part. So it's not like he can really commit to anything until they do. I think he wants to keep a large portion of this show a surprise. So with that in mind, his response is a good deal less discouraging. So anyways, back in June, I think before the Microsoft events, Imran Khan, who's a games journalist who's fairly well connected, said something along the lines of this game is probably not going to be shown in 2020 given the sources that he knows, which was then kind of reiterated by Jeff Grubb leading up to Gamescom, when he said that don't expect anything to be shown in 2020, with the exception of Game Awards. Maybe you'll see something there. Now here we are 6 months later, and Imran Khan is now starting to walk some of that stuff back. Not walk it back, because I don't think he was ever wrong, but now say hey, there's a pretty good chance this stuff shows up just based on who's tweeting about what. There was a Bandai Namco UK marketing head who had said oh, big day for December 10th, and then everyone's like, oh shit, it's a big day, what are you talking about? And he's like, oh, the Cyberpunk release, obviously, because Bandai does the distribution and publishing for Cyberpunk in Europe. But yeah, the retweeting and then unretweeting of Game Awards things really made me cautiously optimistic. Even more recently, though, Lance McDonald, who is a big Souls content creator, he's making the Bloodborne 60 FPS patch, and he's made a lot of Bloodborne content in the past. That's kind of his bread and butter. But anyways, big person in the community is fairly connected to a lot of developers in general. But he said on stream this morning that he knows some contractors who only work on stuff that is done at the very end of a game's development cycle. And he said those people, based on what they've talked about on social media, it seems like they're working on Elden Ring now. And that doesn't mean like QA, because QA is something that started like much earlier in a development cycle than like near the end of it. But I think that's stuff like people who work on trailers, and people who are like stress testing the game, which if they're working on the game now, and we just heard Phil Spencer talk about like himself playing the game, I think that means that the game is pretty much done, or very close to being done, and can be wrapped up in 3 to 6 months, which is a proper marketing cycle. So it would make a lot of sense for them to show it at the big game event that would be a nice 3 to 6 months out from their launch date. And as for that launch date, I could totally see it being March. I think that's a little bit early, but March is a good bet considering that pretty much all of their other games have ever launched in March. But I think what's more likely is like a summer 2021 release date. It gives them a long, comfortable chunk of time to hype up their game, to get their marketing campaign rolling. But really I could see either one or something in between. But I gotta bring your hopes down. Let's talk about worst case scenario, in that Elden Ring isn't at the Game Awards. What does that really mean? That means something really bad, really late in the project has gone wrong. That also bodes poorly, I think, for the entire project, but especially the fact that this game was slated to be launched in 2020. This game was slated to be a cross-gen game, so that it launches on both like Xbox One, PS4, and Xbox Series X and the PS5. Now, if that game gets delayed even more, we're looking at a launch that is a year after like next-gen consoles came out, which would just be bizarre to then also launch on the previous gen as well. As someone said on the Elden Ring subreddit, it kind of has to be there, because I don't know when the next event after the Game Awards would really be that would make sense for them to show it at. It's kind of like this, or we start looking at next summer for them to show it, which the longer things are in development for, in my opinion, just bodes more and more poorly. Like, I want FromSoft to take their time and make the game that they want to make, but once you start getting like a year, 2 years past their usual dev cycle, then that's pretty damn concerning. Then you can really start talking about stuff like development hell. I don't think we're anywhere near that. I really do think at this point, given all that we know, I think it's going to be at the Game Awards, but if it's not, I think we should be really worried. So yeah, Game Awards are in a week. I'm going to be watching that whole thing with cautious optimism. I also just really like the Game Awards. A lot of people are like, ew, no, it's cringe. That's fair. A lot of it is, the game industry as a whole is still trying to really figure out its fan base, what its fan base actually likes, and they're still treating it a little bit like Hollywood. But I think it is this like awesome celebration of games and like what people are working on. I'm always just so excited to see what other studios are working on, what they're coming out with, and just really how they're like pushing the boundaries. I'm less excited for like, oh, look what other generic, name brand thing is coming to Fortnite, or like this year's Call of Duty is even more tone deaf than last year's. I'm less excited about that, more excited to see like indie developers and developers like FromSoft that really seem to want to push the envelope. So I would encourage you to watch it either way. Don't just wait around for the trailer to pop up on YouTube. The other thing I wanted to talk about is that like Demon's Souls PvP has some pretty major issues, which is why I don't think it's going to last a very long time. Like, I don't think there's going to be any truthers who like refuse to play Elden Ring's PvP because they like Demon's Souls too much. There are some really major issues with what Bluepoint did and what they didn't do. And obviously people are having fun with the PvP right now, which is awesome, but I really don't think it's going to have a very long shelf life, because I think there's some pretty glaring issues that as time goes on, like as people start organizing ganks, and as the community gets a little bit more stale and a little bit more toxic, I think these issues will become even more of a problem than they already are. So there's 3 big issues that are a big concern for like Demon's Souls PvP. There's the fact that you can summon high-level phantoms, like much higher level phantoms than you. But like in Dark Souls 3, those phantoms get scaled down to have like appropriate health and like semi-appropriate damage. But in Demon Souls, they just get summoned in as their like full-fledged character. Like there is no scale down. You can summon like a level 150 player at SL30, and they'll be doing their like SL 150 damage, which is, I think, really bad for all facets of the game. It's bad for PvP because any invaders can just get one shot, but I think it's even worse for PvE, where you can really just let someone who's just super high level carry you through the game because they're just going to one-shot everything with their insane high level damage. And I don't know why they implemented the ability to summon these high level phantoms but like didn't implement scale down. It's just totally bizarre to me. Then there's the fact that there is no weapon upgrade matchmaking, so you can be at like SL30, starting a playthrough, and have like +3, +4 weapons, which is pretty appropriate for that range. But you can get invaded by someone who has a fully upgraded weapon, which is just baffling to me because Dark Souls 3 and the Dark Souls 1 remaster all had weapon upgrade matchmaking that essentially really neutralizes the really bad twinks. There's still some issues with twinking in Dark Souls 3, and that's okay. They've really been toned down compared to like Dark Souls 1 and Demon Souls, but they just left it as is, so you can just get annihilated by an invader with a fully upgraded weapon. And that's why people hate twinks. People hate situations where they feel like they don't even have a chance. And if you're going up against someone who's, maybe better at the game, maybe you can summon a friend and you can take them on. But if you're going up against someone who's better at the game than you, more prepared, has more healing items, has the whole level to deal with, and they can basically two-shot or even one-shot you with their weapon, you have absolutely no chance at all. And that just kind of blows. And that's for both hosts and invaders. I was watching some streams for some fairly prominent Demon Souls invaders, and they're like, yeah, it's so much easier to win invasions in this game. It's like, well, yeah, because you're backstabbing people with fully upgraded fatal daggers, which is going to do almost all of your health at high level, but to lower level people it's going to do all of their health every single time. So yeah, of course it's easier to win invasions when you have really all the odds stacked towards the invader versus Dark Souls 3, where it's really stacked more towards the host. And the last really big issue that I think Bluepoint really failed to address was the fact that you can just quit out of an invasion. And I'm not talking about alt F4ing or hard closing your app in order to quit the game when you get invaded, which is just a disconnect, right? Which, per the rules of the FromSoft EULA, is cheating, right? No, you can actually just go to your menu and quit out to the main menu to avoid invasions. So other people I've been talking to have been doing a lot of Demon Souls invasions, said their last stream that 90% of the invasions they got were just not immediate, but almost immediate disconnects because the person would just quit to the main menu. And then they'd re-invade them and they do the exact same thing. And that's not fun for anyone at all. It's not fun for the invaders who get disconnected on. It's also not fun for people who are playing the game, who just have to sit through another loading screen. And it's so foolish because if they just, fought the invader, whether they won or lost, they wouldn't get invaded again for quite a while. That's how the invasion timers on these games work. But because you keep quitting to the menu, and because Bluepoint basically allows them to keep quitting to the menu, that just keeps happening over and over again. So those are the three substantial reasons I think Demon Souls is going to have a fairly short shelf life for PvP, and I think people will be really excited and ready for the next game with PvP. Well, I've kind of covered everything I wanted to talk about in this video. We are a week out from the Game Awards, and at this point we can only hope that the dice rolls in our favor. And that's been a big theme of this year in general. But I think it's important to always recognize that there's a large portion of your life that is never really up to you. So control what you can control. Didn't mean to go that deep on some life advice, but I also did want to say thank you so much for all the support that I got in my last video. I'm really double away because I think that was 10 times, more than 10 times any of the views I'd ever gotten on a video. And I think it also doubled how many people are subscribed to this channel. So I just want to say thank you guys so much. I really enjoyed reading all of your comments, most of your comments. Some of them were fairly nonsensical. But, you know, this has always been my goal, is to interact more with, like, the Dark Souls and From Software communities, especially focusing on, like, the PvP side of things. I always found that, like, Reddit was fairly hostile to people who like PvP in these games. And there was this small little corner of YouTube where that community seemed to really thrive. So thank you guys for letting me be a part of that. Just know that I really, really appreciate you guys. So that's all from me, guys. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.